Today I'm going to read from my novel, They, A Biblical Tale of Secret Genders. And I started writing this when about 5 years ago. I became a Unitarian, but actually I was thinking, because I saw a book about yoga back there, a kid's book, and I was thinking that experience of starting to take yoga with my partner, Barbara, that experience definitely influenced this book as much as reading the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament.
Which you'd never read before.
Which I had never read before. I know it's very secular. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have been able to read this. So in this section I'm going to read, Tamar, who lives outside of the town in the desert in her tent with her camel, Aziz, sees somebody coming from the distance. And the person coming kind of makes her a little afraid. She's not expecting anybody. And she realizes, as the reader realizes in this section, that it's her old friend Judith. And she had a very complicated friendship with Judith. And Judith was a member of the goddess cult that met at Tamar's tent in the desert in secret. And Judith is married to a man called Bram after Abraham. And Judith has 6 children, and Judith and Tamar were briefly lovers. And I think I'm going to sit down to read. I think I can still see people. Okay, I can still see you.
Okay.
All right, so I'll give you Tamar's story. Maybe the passerby was just lost. There is no point in taking chances. Tamar brought a few clay pots outside with her. She started to rinse them out with a bucket of water from the well. They were just dusty, so they didn't need to be scrubbed. She rinsed the pots and kept her eyes on the horizon. The figure was close enough that she could make out what the rider was wearing, a black and white straight robe. First, Tamar saw the brown veil draped across the rider's face. Then she saw something bouncing up and down with the camel steps. The rider had breasts, and over them silver necklaces glinting in the sun rose and fell. Tamar held a clay pot on the side and washed out the inside even though it was already clean. She placed it in the sun to dry. The visitor came closer and stopped. The camel knelt down and the visitor disembarked and stood in front of Tamar. Tamar, said a husky voice, it is me. Tamar was silent. The rider took off her veil and revealed herself. Are you glad to see me? I thought I'd never see you again, said Tamar. She held her wet rag to the inside of a clay pot, swirled around, and set the pot in the sun. I needed some time to myself, said Judith. And in that time, I realized that things were different. I am different. She reached down and put her hands on her stomach. There was a slight bulge. For one thing, I am with child. Are you sure? It has been more than 3 moons since I last bled, said Judith. Plus, I feel different. For one thing, I don't have the sickness that I suffered the last 6 times. A child is stirring in me, and I am sure it is a girl. And there has been no one else but you. Tamar stared at Judith. Rubbish. She must have lain with somebody, probably Bram, she thought. She didn't believe her, but happiness bubbled up in her and spilled over. Tamar was happy for Judith. She had helped Judith create a daughter, even if she had just paved the way by teaching Judith to silence the old voices in her mind and how to value herself as a woman. I see you're again wearing the silver necklaces that Bram gave you, said Tamar. Judith nodded. I figured that it didn't matter anymore since I am a child. I am certain that it must be a daughter, and since I've always liked the necklaces. While Judith was busy making excuses, Tamar remembered the words of one of the old women from the province of Razawa, who told her that in the ancient days women gave birth to daughters without the intervention of men. The old women told her that many of the goddesses were born this way. Suddenly, Tamar felt as proud as a father announcing the birth of a son. So it is true, thought Tamar, but outwardly she bristled. She was proud, but at the same time she could not believe it. Are you sure you did not lay with Bram? She asked. I am sure, replied Judith. I would have sent word, but if Bram finds out I'm with child, he will be angry. You know how men are. He will assume that I was unfaithful and laid with another man. And you know what happens to wives who commit adultery. Tamar nodded gravely. I have decided that I love you and want to live with you. I brought some of my belongings, enough for a few nights in these baskets behind me. I can send for the rest. Bram is off on a journey to settle new lands. He probably won't even notice I am gone when he comes back. Tamar looked at the baskets. They were wide and deep. They looked full. Judith needed this much stuff for a few nights. How many more baskets would she send for? Tamar considered the fact that Bram was a powerful man. He would come for his wife or send someone. He would find out that she was with child. He would have them both burned at the stake. Wait a minute, said Tamar, holding up her hand. You belong with Bram. You created 6 sons together. But I want to be with you. Your people are my people. I will lodge with you and be with you always. Tamar was silent. Thank you. And thanks to the Penn Book Center and to the All But True Working Writers Group, which was the series on.